the Phillips Center for the Performing Arts at the University of Florida was filled with people honoring the life of a community leader.
TV 20's Scott Gagliardi tells us how people attending the funeral of Charles Chestnut III are remembering his legacy.
Family, friends, and a community have laid to rest a Gainesville city legend, Charles S. Chestnut III. He was 83 years old when he passed away on December the 4th. Chestnut worked for many years serving Gainesville, Lake City, and the greater North Central Florida area. He was the first black person elected to the Alachua County School Board back in 1976 and was a previous commissioner for Alachua County. His wife, Cynthia Moore Chestnut, Gainesville's current city commissioner, says her husband was a true champion for civil rights and that he dedicated his life to the city.
Mr. Chestnut was a staple in the community, always caring and giving, supporting families.
As a young man, Chestnut served as president of the Alachua County NAACP Youth Council. He also launched an initiative to assist black Alachua County citizens to vote.
It was like a president walked into the room. He was just had that small in stature, but big at heart, at large.
Throughout his life, Mr. Chestnut received numerous honors, such as the Community Legacy Award, the Martin Luther King Jr. Hall of Fame Award, and the NAACP Leadership Award. He also led Chestnut Funeral Home for over 60 years. 8th Avenue, the road his funeral home is on, was designated as Charles S. Chestnut III Avenue. In Gainesville, Scott Gagliardi, TV 20 News.